Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to episode 7 of my video cast on YouTube, Politics 2100. Today I'm going to latch on to episode 6 and also bring in news from today, which was the announcement of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a Sixth Assessment Report from the UN Working Group, and also talk about science denial and willfulness in science denial. So, it's kind of an example of how I think this willfulness paradigm is a potential help for understanding some of the resistance to action on climate change. So I have been on the climate change beat for 16 years or so in terms of a commitment I have personally to address it and to try to either stop it or slow it and potentially give the human species a chance to survive its own destructiveness. And so and it's been hard. It's hard to be in that community of people who are not listened to generally, and also to be even within that community of people to have what I think are now, at least, they're the most widely accepted ideas about what we should do, but for many, many years were not. The idea is basically of government leading the charge in terms, governments leading the charge to address climate change and to organize the effort, the climate action itself. And so I've been there for about 12 or 13 years or so in terms of being in that group of people the very small group of people who think that not carbon pricing, which was the Kyoto model, but I used to call climate Keynesian, but I'm now calling it a government-led or government dirigiste, with the French word for director, or dirigeur, I think that's the French word for director, film director. But anyway, the government leading and structuring the big picture climate action activities that we need to be doing. And so the reason why I'm bringing it here, beside the fact that today was the publication of this report, was that I think that to understand the resistance, especially in the United States, especially in some other countries that have a strong tradition of climate denial, including Australia and England to a lesser extent, but still strong over there as well. That to understand the psychology of hard climate denial is important. So I'm going to do another video, another point about soft climate denial, which is a concept I am arguably one of the progenitors of, and have written about a fair amount. And it's a very important concept. I think it's also critical. But hard climate denial is what we call climate denial generally, in the sense of people who minimize or mock or climate change, or deny that it even exists. So that latter, deny that it even exists, is something that's harder to sustain right now. So we have people who are trying in our political life, trying to mock it as a woke preference of people who are, in other words, it's a choice that people are making, like myself and people who are not as far to the left as myself, but or is interested in climate change as myself, but anyway, that it's somehow a kind of a fashion, or that people are adopting because they like it, and that in fact that that it's not real, that it's part of, that there's and often this is beneath that is this paranoid idea that that was the basis of lots of climate denial, that the scientists of the world had sort of organized themselves to, and not only had they organized themselves, but they somehow had organized their findings of their instruments, their thermometers, their whatever other instruments they're using to measure various chemical concentrations, or acidity, or but largely temperature is obviously a big deal in this era. But anyway, that somehow there's this enormous scientific fraud that's being perpetrated by thousands of scientists around the world. And where this comes into the idea of willfulness that I introduced in the last video, and the willfulness of the right wing, is that this is sort of, there's willful denial of the world, and I'm calling it willful, and you might find that that's problematic, or but it seems to me that this is an effort to just say, I don't like this, I want it to be different, and it doesn't exist, so I say it doesn't exist, and or I make up a story that is highly implausible, that can never sustain itself as a rational story, but still it's treated by various unfortunately, some of them not right-wing, some of them centrist, or press outlets, as being a perspective or a skepticism. The use of the word skepticism to describe denial is one of the unintentional PR, and I talked about unintentional PR in the first video, in the episode 1. But that's part of the unintentional PR for climate change denial is to call it skepticism. Skepticism is a scientific, it's a well-respected scientific attitude. In some sense, all scientists should be skeptical until the data shows them that the theory is well supported, or the hypothesis is well supported by data. And so the idea that the denialists are skeptics is laughable. And unfortunately, many media outlets either ignorantly or planfully decide to call denialists skeptics to inflate their respectability. And unfortunately, they are often, they are either manipulators, so sociopathic manipulators of naive and ignorant people who are afraid and who don't want things to change, or they themselves are just paranoid people who are, those same people who are, they're either the manipulators of the people, or they're the people themselves who are the base of the right wing, who are ill-informed, constantly listening to conspiracy theories, and having little ability to separate a conspiracy theory from a plausible theory, and being constantly fed a diet of these by supposedly trusted, or they trust, the outlets like Fox News, for instance. And so it becomes then a contest of wills, and so the leaders, who either, many of whom do not believe the things that they're saying and they're manipulating other people, or if they do believe them, they are, seriously disturbed. Well, both are seriously disturbed. One is a sociopath who is disturbed in the sense of how destructive they are and who are a danger to society, danger to others. And then the other people are disturbed in the sense of people who, more conventional sense, are crazy and paranoid. And so they've created the whole edifice of climate denial is this idea that these scientists have created this conspiracy, and then the political people like myself, or much more powerful people, who generally say, well, the science is real and we should do something about climate change. And it becomes, if they do, there's unfortunately those people that I just described also are subject to another kind of denial, which I've written something about. But anyway, the willfulness comes in when, so there's this big conspiracy, and there are these supposed powerful institutions that are supposedly powerful institutions that are quote unquote liberal, who are forcing these whatever supposedly honest, upstanding citizens and their supposedly honest and upstanding representatives, who I'm questioning that they are not honest and upstanding, but not only questioning, I assert that they are almost to a T not honest and upstanding, but that they think they're in a struggle of will. So in other words, that basically government is going to impose on them, like they're going to take away their meat, they're going to take away their cars. I mean, the government is going to do that. So it becomes a contest of wills, where they're imagining that this is going to happen. And look, in a program, in an actual climate program that will meet the demands of the IPCC, there will be some restrictions on what people can do, given with the current tools we have in our society. The wanton, eventually, we will see, buildings decarbonized, meaning you can't use natural gas in your building anymore, and you can't, and eventually, we might see, the need to retrofit cars to be electric, or to, so you can keep your car, but, someone could switch out the engine, or, for some money or whatever it is. So you couldn't keep your fossil fuel appliances at some point, through various, if we were serious about this thing. So it's not as though some of this is not things that we should be doing. Okay, we should be overcoming, and a lot of aspects of the American way of life are unsustainable. So, and I know this is what I'm saying is politically very, in the current context, I'm violating the rules, the approach, the political approach of some people who advocate for, among other things, the Green New Deal. So I'm saying that it should be a rigorous program that involves some changes in our lifestyle. It should involve new opportunities for new kinds of, pleasures and things, that some of which I don't even know what they are, but new forms of enjoyment. But still, despite this, what I'm saying is those things need to change, and we need to figure out a way to make it so it's fair. It's done in a fair way. It's done in a way that's equitable. That's done in a way that's life-sustaining for the people who now live, and then obviously life-sustaining for people who are either young or to be born. And so but still they're imagining there's this idea that there's going to be a contest of wills, and they're already anticipating that. In other words, they're what is the thing that gets their goat is that somehow that some people who supposedly know better are going to tell them what to do. And it's like there are certain things that we have to stop burning fossil fuels. So it's, if you can't, you personally, I'm speaking to a right-wing person, can't come to that conclusion yourself, given the data, it's like, and you say, it's me, I'm the one who's imposing it on you. If you can't impose it on yourself, at some point, the government is going to impose it on you. So, and because of survival of all of us. So it's a similar idea with the mask mandate or the vaccine mandates. It's like, at some point, government is going to say, yes, we have to do that. And so there's really, at some point, no pussyfooting around the need for certain rules and restrictions, at the same time enabling other things to happen that are, free, and you can freely choose to, do different things that are unrelated to or that don't depend on the burning of fossil fuels. So, and we have to make that happen. We have to enable the basis for that to exist. So it's not easy. It's not as though I can do it tomorrow for everybody, and we can all do it tomorrow for everybody. It's going to be hard. It's going to be harder in some areas than others to do that. So, but still, the right wing and the climate denialists are so focused on the idea that it's always and only about a contest of wills. It's always and only. It's not about. It's like, in a way, like the relationship of a parent and a child, a very young child, that doesn't really recognize the environment, doesn't understand what's going on. And the child is just saying, I want something, okay? And the parent is looking at the environment saying, hey, wait a minute, we don't have that thing. We don't have I'm sorry, there's no popsicle, I can't. It's like, no, I want the popsicle. It's like, and the kid is yelling and screaming and so forth and so on. And so, unfortunately, we have lots of adults now in our society led by leaders who are that willful child, or like a willful child. It's that a child who wants a popsicle is not really willfulness, but let's say the child is, throwing fits and just is beyond typical unhappiness for a child. So it's like, and that point, the adult is left with a choice of, just, accepting the child's going to be unhappy and trying their very hardest to eventually find what it is, the thing the child is desiring, it can sometimes, anyway, sometimes there's no happy solution for that kind of situation, and in terms of a temperament, in terms of whatever, or it takes great skill for the parent to deal with that child. So, and sometimes resources to really, come to terms with how to deal with the child who's insisting on something that is very hard to give the child. So anyway, so the I'm sorry went into so much depth there, but the relationship of the liberals, or the supposed left in our country, which is not really very left, and this right-wing, now Trumpist, but often climate denialist group of people, is that they are only focusing on this struggle of wills, that in some sense that it's really bad mommy or daddy, okay, that is the problem, and it's not the situation, the fact that no popsicles are to be found, so in that situation, or no, whatever it is, treats, whatever treats the kid likes. So that so we're not, it's an unequal relationship in terms of acknowledgement of reality, and it's hard to, and so the focus is always, so this contest, in other words, the in that contest, there's a struggle of wills, and that's really just what it's all about. Like, who wants? Like, I want, I win. So I win if my will is fulfilled, I win. So, but it loses touch with the whole situation. Family, comedy, and also just in general, what are the resources that you have? What are the things? What can we use to satisfy ourselves? From the world around us, and so. The idea that you show your willful, you show off how strong your will is, and how much you resist. You resist this conspiracy of people telling you that you got to change, you got to not use fossil fuels, and they say, no, it's the problem is your conspiracy. The problem is you're just trying to impose upon us. That's all you want. All you want is to control us. And it's like, well, no, all we want is a stable climate, and it's democracy too. So at least I want. Anyway, many of us who are in this movement want democracy as well as a stable climate, or stabler climate. So so the focus on this psychological reality rather than the entire reality of the world, for these actors on the right wing, the idea that they're constantly creating these dramas. If it's not there, they create the drama of this conspiracy of left-wing controller. They're either communists, they're either Marxists, they're woke, they're cancel culture, whatever it is, and they're trying to create this constant the idea that but it's an imaginary struggle. So like I said before, there is reality to the fact that we must change our way of life, but no one currently is actually putting that on the table of the feared, whatever it is, conspiracy. It's nowhere near as sinister as these people are making it out, but no one is saying what they should be saying is like, look, we have to get on onto not stop using fossil fuels by 2030. Okay, so how are we going to do that? In the United States, and it's like, at least 80% by 2030 or 100% by 2030 is better. So that means changes but we need to recruit people's adult selves in that venture. Okay, we need to recruit them in terms of communicating with them. What are the facts of the world? It's not just about your feelings, about your attachment to to the current American style of life, or your attachment to particular objects. It's about bringing us together to focus on how we can together, all of us, help structure this new non-fossil fuel using world that's also not much methane, or very little methane, emitting, for instance, through animal agriculture. That's another big hurdle, which in some sense is happening in some ways voluntarily, but in a very small way through certain choices that people are making. and companies are also supplying some products that are, alternatives to, animal agriculture. So anyway, so I think I've sort of opened a number of issues here, and maybe I've focused too much on one thing or another, but I wanted to talk about willful denial of science, and I don't know if I really got into that well enough here, and also the idea of a struggle of wills as being the focus of the right wing, and that they're constantly trying to create a struggle of wills in some form or other to make people feel like that their opponents are all powerful, and that they're going to impose upon their constituents, and that also that they are the heroes that are stopping that from happening, these right-wing leaders, and furthermore that we need to confront that with the reality of it's about the real world that you're denying. It's about the real data that you're ignoring, and that you're creating an unrealistic and mostly paranoid view of certainly the data that we're collecting, but also the future government program that we need, which will involve change. You can participate in it and help structure it in a way that's makes it more satisfactory for you. It's not just us deciding for you, that you should do certain things, or us. And again, there's not a we that I'm just, but anyway, the big we that is they're fearing. So anyway, so this is I will return to this topic probably numbers of times in this video cast, but it's an effort to weave together this willfulness and this and try to get into some of the psychology of how we might be able to communicate better around some of these issues. So in any case, I might be continuing this in the next video cast, or talking about some other issue, because there's so many to talk about. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Please like it if you do, and also subscribe to this channel if you are enjoying these videos, and I hope to see you next time.